Welcome to Chapter 1. As we start this journey in the residential wiring series, my name is Paul Abernathy, your host for this series, and we're going to tackle residential aspects under the 2020 edition of the National Electrical Code. We're going to move our way through different aspects of residential wiring. We're going to have a great discussion. We're going to have videos. We're going to really try to cement what you need to know about residential wiring. Now, I should say this up front. Nothing is going to take the place of the hard work that you have to do in the field. You have to do the hands-on. You have to learn how to run the branch circuits, how to do the switch legs. You have to learn how to do the 3-ways, the 4-ways. But there's a lot of tips and tricks that we can teach you along the way to help enhance your skills, to make you a better electrician. And that's what this series is all about. So we're excited that you're going to start this journey with us, that you've invested in the residential wiring course. And we're excited about everything that we're going to talk about in these series. So without further ado, let's get started. We want to talk about Chapter 1. This is the introduction to Chapter 1 to kind of discuss what you're going to learn as you move through this unit. Now, after studying this chapter, you're going to be able to explain the basic safety rules for working on electrical systems. So important. Electrical safety gets taken for granted because people will say all the time, I get shocked, but I'm still here. That's because we're usually wearing boots. That's because we're usually not bonded well, and we're not creating two differences of potential for current to flow, which can be detrimental to our life and the safety of our environment. So we're going to discuss that, and I'll give you little nuances. Again, there's OSHA that's involved. There's NFPA 70E. That's heavily involved in electrical safety, a great document to get familiar with. So again, we'll discuss all that as we move through the program. You'll be able to demonstrate accessing the internet to obtain nearly unlimited sources of information related to safety and technical issues, not just on our websites, but there are a lot of great resources all over the internet. I remember when I started in this industry back over 30 years ago and had nothing like what we had today when it comes to resources. If you want to learn something, the information's out there. So we stop propagating falsehoods and misleading information when all of the information is right here in our National Electrical Code. It's all right here in other informative resources that are online. Always trust your source, but there is a lot of information out there. And we're not talking about the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Facebooks. We're not talking about those type of resources, okay? All right. Next, you'll become aware of the National Electrical Code, referred to as the NFPA 70, and that governs almost all electrical installations. Now, within the National Electrical Code, it will tell us what's covered within the scope of the NEC, that's the acronym for National Electrical Code, and what is not covered by the NEC. So as you go through this program, you're going to learn the National Electrical Code in depth and how it relates to the everyday tasks of a residential electrician. So that's something to look forward to because we will go really deep in the National Electrical Code to help give you a broad understanding. You'll identify other important safety standards that are available, including the standards for electrical safety in the workplace. Now that says NFPA 73. I believe that's incorrect. That should be NFPA 70E rather than 73. Sounds similar, but I don't believe that's it. And we'll be looking at occupational safety and health administrative rules. It's OSHA. Now, OSHA, you might think won't apply to you because you may be a residential, mom and popper that are doing a 1-family dwelling or 2-family dwellings. But if you start getting into multi-family dwellings where you have a common space, then that falls under commercial requirements, even though you have individual dwelling units. Then you've got a situation where OSHA plays a part in that because that is really a commercial project, and OSHA plays a heavy role in that for safety, surprise visits, and following those safety rules. So not so much for the small 1 and 2 family do they get too involved in that, but you have to realize that residential wiring is not just to doing a dwelling, okay? The safety principles are going to be just as important whether or not you're doing a huge multifamily building or a simple 1 and 2 family residence, okay? So we'll be looking at it and discussing different aspects of OSHA because a lot of this is just really good information that you need to be aware of, and if you have employees, they need to be aware of it. It's going to also save you in the long run because it's going to reduce the job site incidents, accidents, potential risk of shock or electrocution, burn injuries, fall injuries as a result from a reactionary shock. All those type of things can be reduced by understanding safety in the workplace and being very professional. One of the things I pride myself on is electricians are at a different level. And I want you to carry yourself at that level. You need to bring pride to this industry. Okay? Look the part, act the part, learn your trade, and you're going to be heads, leaps, and bounds above everybody else in every other trade. There is no other trade like the electrical trade in my mind, and that's how I like to focus with students. Next, explaining requirements for licensing, permits, plans, specifications, symbols, and notations. What are the importance of them? Understanding permitting, understand that there will be people that work without permits, okay? You have to understand the licensing rules within your given state, and that is your responsibility to learn what the licensing requirements. You can't use this, oh, well, I didn't know, okay? It's in your state. You're a professional. It is your job to make sure that you understand what those nuances are and that you permit jobs, that you have plans, whether they're as built or they're actual drawings for a project. Specifications, what's the importance of them? Are you following a specification? Okay. Symbols, what do the symbols mean? Things like that. And again, various notations that are all over a set of drawings that will kind of shed light on certain things that you have to be aware of. Next, you'll be able to explain the role of an electrical inspector and the International Association of Electrical Inspectors. That is a voluntary group that's located in Richardson, Texas, but they help raise the bar when it comes to education on electrical inspectors. And it is the go-to association for individuals who want to seek a career as an electrical inspector. Okay, so you need to also understand what electrical inspectors are encountering and what they're not there to do. Okay, they're there to look at a minimum safety install. They are not there to be the purveyors of all things safety, like with OSHA and 70E, for example. Now, they might make recommendations depending on what level of skill they have as an electrical inspector, but they're there to look at your work to make sure that it is a minimal compliance with the national safety standard. In this case, usually the NEC. The next is describe the metric system of measurement. Okay, so we have different types of measuring system, but we want to be able to explain the metric system of measurement so that you clearly understand it as you encounter it in the field. And lastly, describe the role of nationally recognized testing laboratories like NRTLs. So that's the acronym you'll see called NRTLs, and the necessity for installing listed and labeled equipment. Why it's important. Now, of course, not everything has to be listed. For example, we have listed floor boxes, but not every junction box would have to be listed. While there are different aspects of the code, for example, wireways, that aren't required to be listed, but there is a construction requirement, typically in part 3 of a specific article, that's going to talk about the construction of such wireway and things like that. So we obviously will discuss those things as we move through this series. So I'm excited. That is the introduction, and we're going to tackle each one of these. And so it's going to be multiple videos in this chapter 1. So sit back, relax, and hopefully you'll get something out of this and enjoy it.